All right, guys, so this is where we finished off yesterday talking about slope. So slope can be positive, as in it's increasing from left to right. It could be negative because it's decreasing from left to right. We could have a slope of 0, so it's not increasing or decreasing. Or it could be undefined. It's going straight up and down. Because if it's going straight up and down, there is no slope. It is an undefined slope because we're dividing by 0. There's not a change in the x-axis. Now, what we'll be talking about today is slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form comes in the form of y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. And the reason they call this slope-intercept form is because the m value, the value of m, is our slope. And the b value, the value that would go, or the number that would go in the spot of b, is the y-intercept. The value b is the y-intercept. So if we have it written in the form y equals mx plus b, it will give us the slope and it will give us the y-intercept every single time. The number in front of the x will be the slope, and b, the number added to it, will be the y-intercept as long as we have it in the form y equals mx plus b. Y is by itself, and the value of y is positive. So we're going to look at these here. Look at these 3 examples here, and we'll do these one at a time. Now, when we look at this first one here, we have y equals 3x minus 4. Y equals 3x minus 4. Is this in y equals mx plus b form? Is the y value by itself, and is it positive? Yes. And everything else is on the one side. Y is by itself, everything else is over here. This is in the form of y equals mx plus b. So what number would be our value for m? It would be 3. So the slope of this equation is 3. Now, what would be the value of b? The value b would be negative 4, because that matches up. Now, we take the signs with it, so if it's negative or subtracting it, it would be negative 4. Now, the y-intercept is going to be 0, comma, negative 4. Our y-intercept, when it asks for the actual y-intercept, it's going to come in the form of 0, comma, b. 0, comma, b. So here we'll have 0, comma, negative 4 because the value of b is negative 4. Any questions on this here? Okay. Let's look at the next one. The next one is y equals 6.5. So is the value of y by itself, or is y by itself, and is it positive? Yeah, so this is in y equals mx plus b form. What's the value of m? Is there an x in this equation? No. Anytime we don't have an x value, it turns out the slope would be 0, because this is our horizontal line. Y equals is our horizontal line, and the slope of a horizontal line is always 0. The slope of a horizontal line is always 0. Now, what's the value of b? So if this is in here, what's left? 6.5. So our y-intercept is 0, comma, 6.5. Because it works out that it kind of tells us the y-intercept, because we have a horizontal line, and it's going to cross the y-intercept, or the y-axis, at 6.5. Any questions on any of this here so far? Any questions on anything we've done so far? Okay. That brings us to the last one here. Negative 5x minus y equals negative 2. Is y by itself, and is it positive? No. So with this one here, because y is not by itself, we need to get it by itself. So we need to get y by itself. We need to solve this equation for y. So the first thing we need to move is the 5x. We need to move it to the other side. So the only way I can move things from one side to the other is adding or doing the inverse of it. So since it's negative, we are going to add 5x to both sides. Because negative 5x plus 5x would be 0. So that leaves us with negative y on the right or the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, we're going to have 5x minus 2. And we want to put the variable or the number with x in front in first spot. Because again, we're really trying to get this in y equals mx plus b form. We want to get y by itself in positive. We want to get this in the form of y equals mx plus b. Because if I can get it in this form, then we can find the slope and y-intercept. So as the value, so we have y by itself, yes? Is y positive? No, so we need to make it positive. How can I make this positive? I can divide everything by negative 1. Because we don't want to change, we don't want to move y, we just want to change it from positive to negative. And if I divide everything by negative 1, well, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Anything divided by 1 is just itself, because y divided by 1 is y. A positive divided by a negative would be a negative 5x. And a negative divided by a negative would be a positive, so we get plus 2. So now do we have y by itself, and is it positive? Does it match up to our y equals mx plus b form? Yes? Okay. So what's the value of m, our slope? So the slope would be negative 5. And what's the value of b? Or our y-intercept would be the point 0, 2. Any questions on this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far? Are we good with this here? Okay. Let's look at a few more of these here. So when we look at this first one here, is this in y equals mx plus b form? Yes? So this does look like y equals mx plus b. Yes, y's are both, so the y is by itself and positive. So we can match it up. So what would our slope be for this here? And our slope is always going to be the number in front of x. So the number in front of x is negative 6. So the slope for this line is negative 6. Yes? Now, what would be the value of b? Because that will help us find the y-intercept, our other part that we need. So what would the value be for this here? It'd be positive 1, which tells us that the y-intercept would be 0, 1, 0, b. Any questions on this here? Well, number 7 is already in y equals mx plus b form because y is by itself, yes? So what would the slope be for this here? So the slope would be 0, because since we don't have an x value there, the slope has to be 0. It's going to be a horizontal line. So that means that this is in here. So the value b is 8, and our y-intercept is the point 0, 8, because that's where it crosses the y-axis. That is its y-intercept. Any questions on this here? Okay. Let's look at this next one here, number 8. X plus 4y equals negative 10. So is y by itself? No, it's not in y equals mx plus b form. We really need it in y equals mx plus b form, because if I have it in this form, I can find the slope and the y-intercept, yes? So looking at this here, what do I need to do first to get y by itself and have it be positive? Well, it'd be helpful if x was on the other side, yes? So I have to do something with x on both sides. What can I do with the x on both sides? How would I move it? Add, subtract, multiply, divide. We would subtract because x is positive. We're going to subtract x from both sides, because x minus x will be 0. So I'm left with 4y equals negative x minus 10. Negative x minus 10. And again, we want the x in front. We want it in the first spot because we want this, again, to line up with our y equals mx plus b. Because in our y equals mx plus b, the x term is always first. Now, is y by itself? Now, what's with y? 4. How can I simplify that? Everything by 4. We're going to divide everything by 4. Well, 4 divided by 4 will simplify, and we just have y equals negative x over 4 minus 10 over 4. Now, before we move on, is there any questions on anything we've done so far? Any questions on any of this here? Now, really, when we look at this here, this is really saying y is equal to negative 1/4 x minus. We can reduce this down because there's a common factor of 2 to 5/2. So looking at this here, what would our slope be? So our slope is always the number in front of x, or the number being multiplied by x. So in this case, it would be, and the y-intercepts would be f. So the point would be 0, negative 5/2. Any questions on this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far today? Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to graph, and that's going to be the last part that we're doing with this here today, is graphing these. Now I want to graph it using slope-intercept form. Now is 2x plus y equals 2 in slope-intercept form? Is it in the form of y equals mx plus b? Well, no, y needs to be by itself and it needs to be positive, yes? So how can I get the y by itself? I would do what to both sides? Because 2x minus 2x will cancel out. And we get y is equal to negative 2x plus 2. So now it's in the form of y equals mx plus b, yes? Now m is our slope, yes? M is our slope. And what would the slope of this be? And the b value would be 2, or we kind of have the point 0, 2, yes? Now what is slope? Slope is rise over run. Slope is rise over run. And really, when we look at this here, it's not told to us, but it's really over 1, yes? Because if we have a whole number, it's really something divided by 1. We just don't say it. We don't write it as negative 2 over 1. We don't have to. But this here is really nice for graphing these lines. This makes these graphing the graph of the line in slope-intercept form is actually kind of nice to graph. Because the b value gives me a point, 0, 2, where it crosses the x-intercept, the y-intercept at the point 2, 0, 2. That's where that point is. It crosses the y-axis at the y value of 2. So we can plot that point, and that's what we're going to do first. We're going to plot the point to 0, 2. So go on and plot that. Now the next thing we have is the slope, rise over run. It's how far it's going up and down and left and right. Now up is always going to be positive, down is always going to be negative. Right is always positive, left is always negative, yes? So what is this slope doing? It's negative 2 over 1. So we're going down how far? Going down 2 and over 1. Because that's what the slope is. Slope is negative 2 over 1. So we go down 2 and over 1. And we can do this again. We can do this multiple times. I can go down 1, 2 and over 1. Down 2 and over 1. Down 2 and over 1. Now we can also go the other direction. We could also go up 2 and left 1. Because I can either go down 2 and right 1, or up 2 and left 1. Questions on this here? Then what do we need to do last? We just need to draw a line through these points. Now on the homework, you really just need the y-intercept in one of the points, because once we have that, it'll draw the line for us, yes? Because we only need 2 points to draw a line. Now we can draw more than that, or we can plot more than just 2, and it gives us a better idea of how the line looks. We can draw a line a little bit closer. But we only really need 2. We only really need 2 points. And then we can use a straight edge. Questions on this here? Any questions on any of this here so far? And then the last thing you want to just do what? This is identify the x-intercept. I almost missed that or left that out. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. And at the x-intercept, the y value is 0. Now on this here, where does it cross the x-axis? At this point here, yes? And that point would be 1, 0. The x-intercept is always going to have a y value of 0. The x-intercept is always going to be some value, comma, 0. Some value, comma, 0. Any questions on this? Yeah. So the x-intercept will always be the value of x, comma, 0. The value of x that makes the equation equal to 0. So looking at this here, is this equation in slope-intercept form? No, we don't have y by itself, so we need to get y by itself. So the first thing I can do to get y by itself would be to subtract x from both sides, because x minus x will cancel, leaving me with y is equal to negative x minus 2. Now is it in slope-intercept form? Yes? So the slope for this here would be what? Is there a number written in front of x? Is there a number in front of x? There is a number there. We just don't normally write it. It is 1. Because if there's not a number written in front of the variable, it is understood to be 1. But we do know something special about this one. It is what? It is a negative 1. Since there's a negative sign in front of x, the 1 is going to have to be negative. And the value of b is negative 2. So where would I put my first point for this graph? Where would the first point be? I wouldn't use the negative 1 first. I would use the other one. Because negative 2. Because what is the value of b? It's our negative 2. It corresponds to our what? Y-intercept. So I would look at the graph and go down to negative 2 on the y, and I'd put a point. Yes? Now, critical thinking skills in action right here, ready? Since this is the slope positive or negative? It's negative. So would the slope of this line, so would this line be going up or going down? Down, because it's negative, yes? So when we look at the slope negative 1, really we could say this is the same as negative 1 over 1 to kind of give that rise over run, to kind of give that look. So we're going to go over 1 and down 1, or over 1, up 1, vice versa. So how would I move from the point negative 2? What direction would I go, left or right, and up and down? So I can go right 1, and then where? Up 1 or down 1? Down 1. Because we're saying the line is going to go down, yes? So we can go right 1, down 1, right 1, down 1. Right 1, down 1. Now if I started at this point negative 2 again, and I went up 1, where would I have to go since I went up? I need to go to the left. Up 1, left 1. And that'd be the line. That'd be the equation of the line. Questions on this here? Questions on any of this here so far? We good with this here? So what would the x-intercept be? If we hit the point negative 2, 0 would be the x-intercept. Questions on this here? Any questions on any of this here so far? Okay, let's look at this one here. Is this in y-intercept or slope-intercept form? Yes? It's in y equals mx plus b? So we're good. We don't have to do anything to this equation. It tells me the slope and the intercept. Well, what's the slope? And the y. So what would be my first point? Negative 4 right here? On the y, yes. So we go down to negative 4 on the y-axis. Now, what's our slope? It is positive or negative. So the slope, would it be increasing or decreasing? The line would be going up, yes? So from this point, where would I go? I would go up 4 and over how far? Because the rise is 4, the run would be 1. Anytime there's not a number in the denominator, it's always going to be 1. You go up 4 over 1. Now this one here, we really can't go farther than that because if we go up again 4, we're going to be off the graph, yes? So what's our y-intercept? Or not y-intercept, x-intercept, because we know the y-intercept. Any questions on any of this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far? Let's look at this one here. I think this might be the last one, isn't it? Yes? So is this one here in y-intercept form? Well, no. So I need to get this into slope-intercept form. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get y by itself. Yes, I need to move the x. So how can we move the x over? We would subtract x from both sides because x minus x will make it 2y equals negative x plus 6. Now is it in y equals mx plus b form? Because it's, so y equals mx plus b form, the y is by itself. Is the y by itself? No, we have the 2, yes? So what do I need to do? I need to divide everything by 2. Just for this here, 2 divided by 2 will give me 1, so I will have y by itself. Now, negative x divided by 2 is really going to be negative 1/2 x. Or let's negative x over 2 plus 6 divided by 2 would give me. Now, really, we can say that this is negative 1/2 x plus 3. We can rewrite that. Those are the same. Negative x over 2 and 1/2 x are the same thing. They are the same thing. We're just moving the x out of the numerator. Now, our slope for this equation would be what? Negative 1/2. And the y-intercept would be 3. So where would our first point be? On the 3 on the y-axis. So I would go up 3 and make a point. Now our slope is what we use next, the rise over run. So the slope for this is negative 1/2. So how would I go from this point? We would go left how far? So the top is our rise, our denominator is the run. So rise is how far up and down. So we can go left how far? So we go left 2 and then it would be up 1 because left is what? Negative, yes? So if I go left 2, I've gone negative 2 to the left, and so I need a positive 1. Because if I go down 1, it would be a negative and a negative, which make a positive. Now I could also go to the right 2 and then down 1. Because to the right would be positive and down 1 would be Negative, yes? So I'd have a positive and a negative, which would make a negative. It would give us our negative slope. And we could continue doing the same thing. I can go right 2 down 1, right 2 down 1, or I could go left 2 up 1, left 2 up 1. So what is the x-intercept? What's that? 0. At the point 6, 0. Any questions on this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far? Now, it could be the point, like if we're given a decimal. So we'll look at this here. If I really wanted to find the x-intercept and it didn't give it to me, one thing we can do, and I would write this down, is we can plug in, because the x-intercept, the value of y is 0, yes? So what we could do to find the x-intercept for this here is plug in 0 for y. I can plug in 0 for the value of y. So if it doesn't give it to me, or we don't have an x-intercept at a whole number, we can plug in 0 for y. Well, 3x plus 0 is just 3x. I'm just solving for the value of x. So what would I need to do here? I would need to divide both sides by. And negative 3 divided by 3 would be negative 1. Questions on this here? Any questions on anything else we've done so far? Any questions on anything we've done today? Okay. So it works out we actually get this point here. And the slope would be negative 3.